Welcome to Life's a Coach. Our mission is to empower individuals like you to take charge of your life, discover your purpose, and elevate your performance to new heights. Each week, we'll be diving into engaging discussions, introducing you to valuable tools from the coaching world, and giving you different perspectives on individual development. Whether you're seeking clarity, motivation, or a fresh perspective, we've got you covered. Again, welcome to Life's a Coach, where the power to transform your life begins now.
Hey! All right, Avril pressed record. That's fantastic. What's
Life.
up? Okay, so I guess we started the podcast, guys. How's everyone?
Oh,
Doing
we're
well?
looking.
As I'm taking my notes as we're getting into it. Today we're going to be jumping into mindfulness. So
Mm.
that's an interesting one. Um, but yeah, Avril, you were saying about the thing.
I was saying, we cannot just jump into today's podcast and go, hey, welcome to Life's a Coach, and just go with the flow, but not talk about a very momentous occasion. Someone just got married in our team.
Woo
You know.
Ba, ba, ba,
woo!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It wasn't me. I don't know. It wasn't
you.
me. But anybody else?
Oh, hold on. Let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. That's why I put that cheering, clapping thing. Yeah.
Doesn't work?
Next time. But anyway,
Well,
Hey, we can give her
Alex,
applause.
we do.
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. And by the
And a
Congratulations.
round
way,
of applause.
a thank you. Big shout out to you guys. That video that you sent me literally made me cry. I was just so appreciative of that. And that really just it helped brighten the day so much. And then I had to play it for Sean and he was tearing up. He's like, "Your friends are
Aw.
amazing." I know.
Oh, that's
Yeah. So thank you guys for
amazing.
that.
Yes. So
Yeah.
once again, for the listeners and viewers, Alexis just got married 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago now, right?
Yeah, almost 2 weeks, just a couple days off of 2 weeks, but it's crazy. I feel like it just happened, and yet,
Mm,
I mean, Sean and I have been together for about 6.5 years, so we felt like we were that old married couple. We acted like that old married couple. So
mhm,
it was one of those things where at first we thought it was just gonna be just a ceremonial thing, more for our
mhm,
families. But then it became a full blown well, we want this memory and we want this
yeah.
moment with each other and with our families. And so then it became super stressful, as
Mm,
anyone that has gotten married or helped plan a wedding or been in a wedding, y'all know,
mhm,
it
mhm,
is
Uh-huh.
really, really stressful. And
mhm,
it's interesting that, we are kind of talking about mindfulness because
uh-huh,
that was one of my biggest realizations, throughout the day, and especially looking back. At the end of the
mhm,
day, when you're kind of reflecting back on the day,
mhm,
everyone kept talking about just enjoy it and enjoy the process leading up to it because it flies by. And I can now be one of those people, 100%
mhm,
attest to that. But I was so incredibly thankful that I did so much personal growth over the last
mhm,
few years and the last several months, especially
mhm,
focusing on being more present and more
mhm,
mindful. And
mhm,
I was so afraid, going in, oh, am I going to let the stress and the fears or the doubts or the worries of this going wrong or that being wrong? Am I going to let that like just shadow over my day? Because,
mhm,
hi, old me would have done that and used to do
mhm.
that all the time. And you miss out on it. And then you look back and you're like, dang, I totally missed that day.
Yeah.
I'm really, really grateful to say that I didn't. I was actually present for almost the entire day, which has never happened for me before. So of all the days, I'm like, thank you,
Yeah.
super grateful, and it just makes it that much sweeter to be able to look back on it, but also I was telling you guys, silently giving myself a pat on the back for
Oh,
that work because it paid off big time. Yeah, it was amazing.
That was big
awesome.
time.
Oh my gosh.
Pleasure.
I'm so happy for you, Alexis. So happy for you. And you're right. Like, for those that have been married before, that have had a day like that before, it's like it goes by just like that. Earlier on you're sharing, like, you don't even remember having the food, eating there. I remember mine. It also feels like a blur, because from the moment you start, you get up, you just like go, 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 go. And it's interesting, speaking about being present, is that for you who's getting married, right? It's like this whole big production. So you've already planned for it. You know how it starts, how it's supposed to go, and how it's going to end. So you're in this world, but for the people who've come to your guests, right? Like when you come to their table and they greet you, that's their moment where they're also present with you for that, right?
Mm.
But in your eyes, it's just a lot of things going on. But with you, that's their moment with you. It's just
Mhm.
crazy like that.
So true.
Mm,
Yeah.
I wish I'd had those skills, Alexis, when I got married, because basically I actually got like physically, like the day before I got sick. I don't know what it was, but basically we're in New York and my like my whole family's coming in town like the week before from London, and my both my parents are divorced, so two sides of the family, and
Mm.
then my my wife's family's coming in from Italy and Canada, so I'm coming into this place. I live in Queens, New York, and we're going to upstate New York, and like I'm at this, in a new place, trying to see everybody during this week before my wedding, just
mm,
making sure that everyone's okay, and the
Mm.
rehearsals are going were okay, and just so much that I was losing out on sleep, and just so stressed.
Mm.
A lot of people don't think about that kind of
mm,
side of it,
mhm,
right? And then
mhm,
on the day
mhm,
itself, it was
mhm,
just as you said, right? I almost wish I'd been a little bit more present. I would say that the most present I was on the dance floor, to be honest. Because
Really?
when I go and I dance, and like I'm just in, there's
Mm,
certain, I feel, instances and moments where people are more present than not. You know what I mean? And so
mhm,
like,
mhm,
for some people it's going outside, being with nature. For me, it's like really when I'm out of my own head and I'm like there's good music on. That's why I
mhm,
like training with music, because I can just
mhm,
dance and just you can be in your body. You know what I mean? And just feel. So I would
Love
say that
that.
was that was the time that I really imagined. But as you said, kudos to you, because that's unbelievable that you could be present in such a special moment for you and your hubby. So that's fantastic.
That takes a lot of skill and practice, because although I have never experienced my own wedding, I have been in a wedding, and listening to the three of your stories just kind of threads it all together, that being mindful has really got to do with your I guess your physical, mental state, being stressed. And the only thing I could relate to was, like I said, I had a very important role in a wedding, and my stress levels were just all over the place. And I don't remember a thing about the wedding, and I should have remembered everything. And so I'm relating to the three of you and tying it all together to stress and, not being in our
Mm.
element. Eric mentioned going outside in nature, or dancing, which is exercise, right? And everybody knows that exercise is one of the top recommendations to reduce stress and then to get centered again into your body. And so, I don't know, it's a little nice segue into our current topic on mindfulness and ways to get into it, and practice it into our lives, or incorporate it into our lives.
Yeah.
Before we do
Absolutely.
that, I just want to say one more time, Alexis, we're so happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Appreciate you all.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
Congratulations, Alexis. And for all of us today, our audience, welcome to Life's a Coach. Today, as we've alluded to, we are discussing mindfulness and performance, cultivating presence in everyday life. Today, we've got life coaches Alexis, Avril, and Almar. Welcome, guys. And first question I
And
want to
Eric.
put out there, and Eric, of course.
Can't forget.
Um, so the first question I wanted to put out there for you to start to think about was, what is the most difficult part of staying present for you? And I'll pop that to Alexis.
Ah, I knew I was going to be first. Um, it's funny
I always
because,
pick someone new.
right, the first thing that I think of, or I was thinking of when you said that, is a conversation that Sean and I have had many times, and it's about like you. It's so difficult when you get in the zone because it's so rare when you're actually feeling present and you're in the zone, and then you realize it and you start celebrating it, and you're immediately out of the zone, and you're like, oh. But now I have to get back,
Yeah.
that's one of the like, it's one of the most hilarious and frustrating things about life, I think. So,
I love
I
it.
like, how do you what was the question specifically? Like, how to
Just,
get
yeah,
in this.
what's the most difficult part? What's the most difficult
Yeah,
part of staying present?
I think, very similarly to what you and Elmar both shared, you, Eric, specifying that, like, finding what really triggers, I guess, your zone, for lack of a better term. What is it that helps you feel really connected to yourself, that drowns out the noise? So sometimes it is being in nature, sometimes it is exercise where maybe you're focused on counting as opposed to opinions and noise. And then, as you mentioned, Almar, it's stress is one of, for me personally, that's one of my biggest deterrents to actually being present. If I am feeling really stressed, I'm vibrating at a lower frequency, as they say. And you're not really able to problem solve or focus or do anything that is super worthwhile. Like, some stress and some fears are good. They can be motivators, but it's when it is really captivating all of your thinking, and therefore, like, you're no good to yourself, you're no good to others, so therefore you're not being present. So if you're really stressed when you're trying to spend time with your kids or your significant other, you're not actually being present with them. You're not spending any quality time with them. So I think those are my difficult ones. Spending the time to explore what works best for me to feel most aligned and to feel connected to myself. So what really brings me joy and happiness, and music is one of them for me as well, Eric, like letting loose. But and then finding ways to, like, de-stress so you're drowning out all of the excess noise.
Yeah.
I think
There's something you mentioned, Alexis, that I find myself, you know, y- y- when you say, like, when you get into that zone, when you're very present, right? Then you get to a moment you're conscious of, like, holy fuck, I'm actually present right now,
Yeah.
right? Then all of a sudden, when you get in the zone, you're then trying to grab onto that space, then you
Yes.
come out of it. I, I know that feeling a lot. Then I'll be like, dang, what was the formula? To me now, my mind kicks in. I'm trying to, how did what was it? Can I do this formula again to get me into this moment? I'm like,
Yes.
yeah,
100%. What's the
mm,
formula?
yeah,
the formula is different for everyone. That's the tough
not
part.
true, sure,
Amen.
yeah,
Anything resonate?
No, I'm just thinking, that's right. Just stay in flow. Just allow and acknowledge yourself losing it and coming out of it, and know that you're going to fall back into it. That's the natural flow of life. Anyway, it's, yeah, just not holding on too much to the loss of it, and appreciating and noticing when you do have it, I think. I don't know. Not
Absolutely.
giving it too
No,
much
I
power.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, Alma, because that resonates with something with me. I'm creating a mental skills course right now for youth athletes, right? So within that, um, there's two concepts of, one of focus and one of awareness. And I think focus plus awareness equals mindfulness, because focus is the ability to be able to just concentrate on a specific task. So now, as we said, are we focusing on our breathing? Are we focusing on, as Alexis said, counting 1, 2? So we're really focusing on the present moment. But the other part of that is the awareness, right? Because within a meditation, for example, a lot of the times you just go like, if you're like me, just go into a thought, and you're so in that thought, you forget what you're doing for like 2 minutes, and then you're back, right? So the second part to that is the awareness, right? And that's like that ability to be able to recognize and understand that you're losing focus. So it's like kind of like that focus and awareness, and that marrying of the two to be able to now stay present, be mindful, and be in the moment. But that definitely resonated with me, Almar, with what you just said. Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess ways of practicing um, staying present, right? So we spoke already about perhaps, you know, how people, depending who you are and what your kind of personal affinities are, will be more mindful in certain situations than um, than other situations, right? So first of all, I want to start off with what Alexis spoke about, which was like the stressful, anxious situations. I guess it's like realizing and understanding your triggers, like what is going to set you off, what's going to stress you out, what are the things that you know that you need to be aware of, right? So it's almost that self awareness. So, I mean, for myself, I know just in general that, like what Alexis said, you know, I shared at my wedding that, I had hardly any sleep, right? And I was like, bending over backwards to make sure that everyone was taken care of. So I know those are like a couple of my blind spots in that I always want to make sure that everyone is okay and everyone is happy and everyone feels welcome and they're in a new place. So now I'm often going to, let my own health kind of put my own health at risk to make sure that those happen. But then also I know this about me that I have a very low threshold for losing sleep. So I know a lot of people, if, I try to get 8 or 9 hours of sleep, some parents out there who are listening, they're going to be like, you're crazy. 8 or 9 hours, no chance, right? But I know that if I, for example, you know, need to wake up early or whatever, and I get my 6 hours, I cannot do that for longer than, let's say, 2 days in a row, 3 days. Otherwise, I'm going to start to really now lose my habits. And then I'm just going to, all of my good habits are just going to kind of go out the window, right? For you guys, is there like almost a negative habit or tendency or trigger that that if you get into this, almost the warning signs of, damn, like if I go down this path, there's no way that I can be mindful. Any thoughts?
Mm. Uh, I Eric, you're a Leo, right?
I am.
Aren't you one of the Leos? God. Yeah.
I'm a
Okay.
Leo.
So like ditto everything you just said. Leo here. I like exactly whether that's just being super focused on making sure everybody's okay and everyone is happy and they know what's going on, they know what to do, and then sleep also. Like I lost a lot of sleep last month. Just all the stress and planning and all the to-do lists. It would wake me up in the middle of the night. But I had to start really focusing in on that. So it's those plus self-care for me. If I start slipping on my habit of self-care, the first thing that starts to suffer is like my ability to be creative, and therefore I start stressing because I have trouble problem solving, and then I start stressing about that. Like it's a whole domino effect. So that's one that I've recognized in the last like year, I would say. But for the wedding especially, I related exactly to everything that you were just sharing, because I went way above and beyond as far as sharing information with people and making sure that they knew, where to go and what to do, because we had a lot of people traveling in. And so I wanted them all to feel a part of it and to know what was going on. And I was also trying to avoid like repetitive questions, because that's just the organizational change management consultant in me. I literally became a consultant about the wedding, basically, over communicating things. But what I had to finally get to the point to say, to sort of counteract that negative trigger or the negative habit, was I had to get to the point to say, these are all adults. Like, literally, there's one child that we invited to the wedding, and he was coming with his mother, who is an adult, fully capable. And I had to let go of that. And it was really difficult because I felt responsible. And I think that's one of the big differences, not to go off on a tangent, but there's a difference between wanting to help people and be compassionate and include them and give them all the info, and then the feeling of being responsible for them. There's a complete
Absolutely.
distinction there. And so I learned that growth about myself, and like having to release that to
Mhm.
then help myself de-stress and connect more with me and what I needed and what I was allowed to want, which was a little bit of boundary, a little bit of space. And that helped me just kind of be a bit more mindful. It didn't necessarily help with the sleep factor. It's an
All
unfortunate
right.
part, but
So can I follow you
yeah,
down in that
yeah.
tangent, Alexis?
Rabbit hole
Okay.
time,
So
rabbit hole time. Everyone's found something. Everyone's found something.
I found something. Let's go with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Where do you think that comes from? Like the feeling responsible for other people. Where do you think that comes from?
For me personally, it
Mm,
ties back to like my older sister. Um,
mm,
I've always had that sense of feeling responsible for her, because
mhm,
she's struggled through life and leaned on me a lot, even though I'm the younger sister. So it has, unfortunately, fortunately, it's trickled into most relationships.
mhm,
And it's it's really hard to, until you step back and have more of that self-awareness, to see the difference or the distinction there. And I think that there's probably just some of us that it goes even deeper. It's just part of your sort of ancestral DNA,
mhm.
where certain people, maybe your ancestors were the responsible party of a tribe or something like that. I mean, that's just my assumption, I guess.
That's juicy. I like that. I like that.
Wow.
So here's what I'm thinking is like, because when you mentioned that, I saw it sort of resonated with me, and I can relate to it, being also one who's always felt responsible for others at one point, and also being around people that I know who always feel responsible for others, right? And when you brought it up, I just thought, oh, let me ask deeper with that. Like, where do you think it comes from for you? But something that you mentioned that I've never thought of is that it may have been an ancestral thing. So sometimes you can be that person who feels responsible for everybody, right? Because my understanding prior to that statement that you made has been that to a certain extent it comes out of your archetype or something that happened to you as a child, your inner child or your shadow self, and that personal growth in your development infant stages that then makes you be more the I want to take care of everybody. I want to. So, but I like that. It's something new that I never had. Like, it's true. Maybe going back generations, some people it just so happens your ancestors used to take care of the tribe. That's where it comes from. Okay. Sorry, I just like that. So we kind of thought, let me go with it. But back to your
I
question,
love that.
Eric.
No, 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 no. I think what you're talking about there,
Mm,
you know, if I peer down that rabbit hole myself, and try and, grab that rabbit's tail, for me as well, I would say, and as an extension to that, um,
mm,
it kind of goes into something that Alexis was saying about knowing yourself and knowing your own values, knowing your own goals, knowing what you need in life, and the opposite of that, which is putting others' needs before yours. And that's something for me, for sure, that I've done in many of my relationships. And I think it's actually really easy to do that in a relationship if you don't have a strong sense of self, where a lot of your self-worth and value is derived from the relationships that you have. So I feel as if, a lot of people can get into those types of relationships where, someone is kind of very sure of themselves versus somebody who perhaps does not have a strong sense of self. And now you just kind of, you almost become hardwired to think that their needs are the same as your needs because you don't have that real strong sense of who you are. So, I mean, I'm somebody who definitely has kind of become kind of prone to that where, yeah, like kind of I'm almost going through this process of reestablishing, okay, what's important to me? And even from the most basic foundational standpoint, is that what I want to do? Is that what I want to eat? Is that, what I want to talk about? Just like just simple questions that we just almost take for granted a lot of the time, where as that builds up over time, we get further and further away from our authentic selves, and we lose sight of who we really are. So for me, I think I'm definitely on that journey, and I think like anything else, the first step is self-awareness, right? Aware that this is an area for you. So a goal that I've set with my therapist over the past week is, okay, look deeply about when someone asks you to do something, a question. If you answer yes, really contemplate, okay, is this really what you want to do? And if it is, then great. If not, then, what was the reason behind you saying yes, right? Was it, were you just trying to be nice? Were you trying to placate so that you didn't cause any arguments? Versus the opposite. If, for example, you say no, how does that feel? And why did you say no, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's actionable for anyone.
That's
Well,
yeah, that's
well,
powerful. It's
it,
a worthiness. I think you touched on that too, of like just the understanding and belief, the true belief that you are worthy of boundaries. Like it's okay for you to have boundaries and to have your own wants and your own desires. And I know, Almar, you've talked about that in the past. And I know that's something that we all share, we're advocates of, right? But that self-awareness too of just understanding, and I think that I fully agree and feel that deeply because I know that's been a big part of why I was able to grow personally in that area.
And to celebrate, yours, Alexis, and Eric's Leoness, it's okay to give to others. It's okay to say yes, even when you really want to say no. But every once in a while, what is it really going to cost you? An hour, a couple hours. It's not where you want to eat. It's not how you wanted to spend your time. But at the end of the day, so what? It's great. You've got the
Alma,
rest.
oh my God, thank you, Alma, thank you, because that's where I was going with this. I didn't know there was somewhere close that I needed this to go, and you just took it there, right? Because
Oh,
that's the question that I
mhm.
think that everyone is going to ask, and I'm going to ask you, Alma, what is the point at which, right, it's okay to say yes, right, versus it crosses that line of shit, I'm losing my sense of self worth or my own like
Yeah.
self worth, because there's and I don't think it's a line per se. There's almost like that gray area. But like, what are the warning signs do you think, Almar, where
Mm.
perhaps you're starting to go too far to the other side, right?
Yeah, sure. I think your cup should always be full, you know? Fill your cup up first. That might sound really selfish to some, but you can't benefit anybody if you're running on half empty. And if you have a full cup, it's great to share some of it with somebody else, you know, and not too much because, you know, and again, it's trial and error, right? You've tested yourself in different scenarios. Sometimes it was a bust and it didn't work out. And now you feel a little resentful for saying yes. But, you know, that's life, right? Trial and error. We're constantly learning. So,
I love
yeah,
that.
Eric, just
Easier
quite
too, isn't it?
simply, you know, make sure you have a full cup. Start from a
But
good
also,
place.
if your cup is full, Almar, and you take some from that cup, right? And you let someone take from that cup as well, they need to fill up that cup as well. If they're constantly taking from your cup and you're giving them your cup, do you know what I mean?
I
There needs to
do.
be, there needs to be a balance, right? So I love what you just said there.
That bank
Okay.
account needs another deposit before you take a withdrawal. Just definitely.
Love that. Love that.
All right, y'all. I ain't no Leo, all right? I ain't no Leo,
I have to add
but
that I am a Leo rising, so you know I
Oh,
can.
no, it's,
Okay.
I ain't no Leo, but detail to what Eric said, what Alexis said, all my days, it resonates for me. It's funny. I just want to like tie together as well, like where you were coming from, Eric, and then where Alma was coming at too, because I felt like with how you described your scenario, Eric, or your experience, there's so many people who relate to that. I relate to that a lot. There've been relationships I've been in myself where I totally lost the essence of who I was. Right? I what she did is what I did. Then it became more about we do this. We evenings we watch this show. Our favorite food is this. To the point that when I came out of that relationship, people would ask me, "Yo, Avril, what's your favorite food?" And I had to really struggle to figure like what's my favorite food because we had become so blended in so many ways, you know. And I get it now when I look back, and even with some of the things, Alexis, you're talking about, a sense of self-worth, a sense of also putting boundaries as well. And also, you know, like Alma's talking about being selfish is a concept that for me, before I started my self-love journey, I could not get what that meant. You know, being selfish was a bad name, was a bad connotation. But in everything that you guys are bringing together, it makes sense. Like, no, you gotta fill your cup and make sure that you're okay before you can help out other people as well. And yes, there is a place, you know, like where Eric was taking it to saying, okay, Alma, at what point do you say yes to something that you really don't feel like doing, but you know, you gotta do it for the group? Yes, there is a place for that. But I feel like a lot of people as well, we struggle on the other part where we always giving of ourselves, even moments where we may not be able to or can't, or we don't have in us to give. So that point of like even losing the authenticity, like the self, being authentic to myself, because I'm all just like, yes, yes, yes. Or I feel the sense of responsibility now I'm feeling for that person, right? Like, I love what you said, Alexis, about them being adults. It's just taking a moment, like, that's an adult. That's a person who's responsible for their own feelings. That's a person who's responsible for their own life. As much as I love and care for them, I cannot now cross that boundary to the point of I'm trying to resolve and make sure they feel okay or they're all this. That's where one loses themselves. That's been my experience. If I can put it out, that's been my experience. Was like, oh, so when I started learning the self-love journey, self-care journey, and putting my boundaries, like, okay, that's them, you know, and I cannot be responsible for everything else, you know, that whole boundaries thing.
Avril, you made me think of a scene in a movie that I don't know. I love it. It's Runaway
Mm-hmm.
Bride, and Julia Roberts realizes that she has no
Uh-huh.
idea how she likes her
Uh-huh.
eggs because the way she has
Yes.
always
Mm,
liked her eggs was the way her partner liked his eggs. And you know, I mean,
mm,
that's a moment. And so what did she do? She took off because it's called Runaway Bride, and she spent time on her own getting to know who she was and how she liked her eggs. And so all that to say is that you have to know who you are. And again, it goes to mindfulness, right? Spending time alone, getting to really not just understand, but fall in love with who you are. And that way you can show up a loving, giving person, whether that is to yourself for most of the time and then to others. Anyway, that's just
to that
what you had
point,
said just
Almar,
made me
like
think of that.
that's such a perfect analogy. I love that. And to your point, like you're not really giving somebody else your true self if you're just compromising everything about yourself to match that. That's not fair to someone that you love either, whether that's your spouse, your best friend, your kids, like everyone deserves you. And I think one of the other things that just reminded me of, I know it's scary to some people, to the idea of being alone or spending time alone. That shouldn't be a scary thought. Just so you know, that shouldn't be scary. Like that should be either liberating or just home and comfortable, for you. And the more that you grow and love yourself, the more you're able to kind of do that. But one thing that a friend of mine recently shared is we were kind of talking about this self-growth, self-love growth kind of journey that we both have been on. She made the point of saying, it's okay to be upset or like unhappy with something or like a behavior or a feeling that you have and still love yourself. Like you can do both. And it was like the simplest sentence was just mind blowing and so reassuring to me, where I just thought, well, damn, you're right. Like I could still love me, but be unhappy that I got jealous or I got envious or upset at what just happened, something at work or something with a friend, or, that it didn't meet my expectations in some reason. But then that also gives you an area to dig deeper, to grow more self-aware and to be able to build out. I know that this may not all seem like it ties to mindfulness, but I promise you it does. Because like we've said, the more self-aware that you are, the more that you love yourself, the more you're able to give yourself focus and mindfulness.
Oh my God, Alexis, I gotta jump on that. So similar to what you and your friend were talking about, my partner and I a few days ago, literally 2 days ago, were talking about this concept where I was saying that since I was like 16 years old, a lot of people have been telling me, Avril, you're very long-tempered, you're very patient. Like I'm a very patient person. And I know it's one of the skills that I have, right? But it's interesting, I was having a moment of venting, then I realized that, wait, it seems as if for the person who is generally very patient, right? When they have a moment of being short, right? It feels as if they get less grace from everybody else than the person who's always, you get what I'm saying? Because it's like, oh, we don't expect this of you. And to a certain extent, the inner critic as well, even within myself, I have a problem like, well, as if I am also not allowed to have a moment of not being patient. So we had a conversation. It was weird in that, yeah, there's an inner person here who feels like I also don't deserve, because I'm this person who's always patient. When I have these moments, I can't. Like I'm telling myself I can't. And at the same time, for those who used to see me being patient, they kind of like, they're not expecting me to have those moments. But when somebody else has those moments, it's acceptable. It's weird like that. So, I mean, I was just trying to tie it into the point of like, telling oneself that it's okay. I can also have a moment like this. I can also have a day like this, and that's okay
Isn't
too.
it able to jump on that? Like, isn't what you're saying, what Alexis is saying here, is that when we first meet someone, either in a relationship or a friendship, we show them this PG-13, perfect, like this is the profile picture, cliff notes, fantastic version of who we are, right? Like this
Mm-hmm.
best version of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
When in actual
Uh-huh.
fact, right, we should probably put in there, like probably within that like kind of profile description, snores a lot,
Disclaimers.
freaking snaps
Disclaimer.
when, yeah,
Fine
disclaimer,
print.
like what's in the fine print? You know what I mean? We need to show that maybe not on the first date or the first time you meet someone, but early on,
Uh-huh.
right? Because some people just may not be able to deal with those kind of quirks, right? But I think to both your points, um, the longer we kind of stay in that kind of whatever you want to call it, and I'm talking about friendships here too, right? That honeymoon period of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
um, showing our best self all the time, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
someone does something that you don't agree with and you really kind of dislike, and you just kind of accept that and you accept it, you accept it, you accept it, then they're building this picture of who you are and what you accept in their minds. So now it becomes much more difficult to backtrack, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
to your point, like early on, we need to be kind of aware of what Alexis said was, what are our boundaries? Like
Mm-hmm.
what are red flags for us? What are like, not okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, and that doesn't mean that you can't be friends, but just,
Mm-hmm.
for example, some people don't drink alcohol or they don't smoke, and you know what I mean? Or they
Mm-hmm.
don't eat certain foods, like whatever it is for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to be aware of those. And I think the earlier that we can identify those and let other people know what they are, the better for everyone, right? The better relationships we can have.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like, just to the point of bringing this back to mindfulness, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, I think the point of today's episode was not to identify, okay, not the, I think I don't want to say the old school version, but the cookie cutter version of mindfulness is always like meditation. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be based around meditation. What we've spoken a lot about is the ability to be still with oneself, to be
Mm-hmm.
authentic with oneself, and to be self aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd just like to put it to everyone with regards to, talked about self care. We've spoken about, even dancing and being out in nature. What are our own self care or, self care habits or habits that we use that that help us stay in that mindful kind of flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, any thoughts on for yourself specifically when you feel as if you're getting away from your true aura and your true, essence? What are some ways to get you back to, okay, this is who I am?
Yeah. I can start us off there as we wrap up. Um, just a quick note on that in everything that we've been talking about as well in regards to self-awareness. One thing that our listeners and viewers should also know. I mean, we are talking from a place of all being coaches here, right? We've been doing the work, right? But however, just a disclaimer, just putting it out there too, that self-awareness is something that's a process, and self-awareness, we get to know ourselves through experience, right? So quick example there, like when I got back into the dating scene after my divorce, I started dating someone who smoked. And in that moment, when she told me she smoked, to me, it was like, yeah, okay. Right. But the more I was in that relationship, I discovered that no, that for me is not going to work. So after that, I knew what worked and didn't work for me. So just to putting out there that, self-awareness also comes with experiences and making some choices that you're like, oh, okay, I should have done that. But then you get to know yourself. As for me, what practices work for me to keep me, I call them my mindfulness, more like me grounding. And the times when I'm getting to that point where I can tell, okay, I'm not being present anymore. Maybe I'm getting short with everything, I'm stressing out. Is finding out nature. It's either music does it for music, like is like meditation for me. I just zone into the lyrics, zone into the vibe, into the vibrations. It just does something for me. Or sometimes just going for a drive. Back in the days, I used to have a motorcycle. in Los Angeles, or just go in the canyons and driving in the hills and the canyons. That's just somewhat sort of meditative for me too. So those are some of the things that. So even in the present day, if I feel like, okay, it's too much, I need to get back into myself and be present, I go for a walk or something like that. Somehow I just find that that's what works for me. Alma, Alexis?
I'm boring, I love meditation, and I love going out into nature and breathing fresh air and feeling the sun and just getting away from all the noise. But yeah, and I'm lucky that I live like a block from the beach, so that's just magic in a bottle right there.
Right?
Alexis?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Nature is a big one for me. As I shared, like music, I love that you get to just kind of be like a kid again. If you need to shake it all out, dance like a doofus, as I like to say. I love doing that around the house. Um, and exercise is typically one that I will tend to go to because it helps me focus on something specific. But then there are times where I find myself at the gym where I'm not really focused. I'm still thinking of all my to-do lists. So I have to recognize that it's not just one thing, and you hear all of us saying we have multiple avenues that we kind of utilize or lean on because it not only varies by person, but for me, it varies by day. So I also like to read. And so I have a couple of books usually that I'm reading at one time. There's always one that's just kind of for fun, or there's one that is about self growth or personal growth. And sometimes I have
Yeah.
two of those. And I will lean on one when I'm maybe feeling a little bit less confident, or I'll lean on another when I'm trying to explore more of my own triggers or my own like kind of zone of genius. But there are a lot of different things. I also like to go to the driving range. That's one of the first places where I actually found myself being present. And I say that with the caveat of I think it was also just the right timing. I had been working on being more present, but I was so focused on hitting the ball because I missed the ball so many damn times that it was like I was just very focused on that. And it was also a place where to I started to learn to accept more constructive criticism, which historically has been a challenge for me. And it was from Sean, my now husband. And that can be a very difficult time of, kind of hearing that criticism from someone you love. So I do think of something like that. It might just be a specific activity, or maybe it's a favorite movie that you just feel more comfortable with. I am a big movie fan too, and that helps me sort of shut down a little bit and just relax. Um, One other thing that I just wanted to mention quickly is a personal growth aspect that has really helped me is a book, Zen Golf. I don't know if you guys have read it. I think it's by Joseph Campbell. Don't quote me on that. But it's a
Joseph
very
Campbell. I do love Joseph Campbell.
yeah,
What's it called again?
it's called Zen Golf.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
it's technically about golf, but it is
Mhm,
so not just about golf. Like
mhm,
it's a very short book. It might even still be free on Audible. That's where I listen to it. But
mhm.
Sean, my husband, he had talked about this for years and said, "You should read this." And I was like, "No, because I don't even like golf. Like, why am I going to read a book about golf?" Finally, as I started to grow in my own personal development journey, I decided to read it because somebody else I think had recommended it. Sean kept talking about it. And honestly, that was one of the biggest catalysts that helped me understand and be more mindful. And one of the things that he talks about in there is when you make a shot in golf, good or bad, let it go. Now it's done. That no longer exists. It's dead. You're now on the next shot. And it was like, oh, okay. So when you start applying that, to golf, and then you start applying that to work projects or a fight that you have with a friend or a spouse or just anything, it really does help you remember and realize like what's important. It's right now. I can't repeat the past in the same way. It's always going to be different. So nostalgia can be a little misleading sometimes. You know, we want to recreate great memories or great moments, and it's like we can't. It's always going to be slightly
Yeah.
different. You're a different person now
Yeah.
than you were 10 minutes ago or a year ago or something. But the same with the future. Like if you're anxious about something that's coming in the future, you're wasting who you are and you're wasting this moment right now. So just focus on the shot at hand. So I highly recommend that book. If you haven't read it, or if you have, share with us. We'd love to hear about it. But I would really, really recommend. I actually am looking forward to reading it again soon. It's been a while.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. It's Zen Golf by Joseph Parent.
Parent. So not Campbell.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I said
No
not to quote
worries.
me.
Joseph Campbell from the Hero Journey. I don't know if
Yeah.
Yeah.
you've heard of Joseph
Yeah.
Campbell, but yeah, the Hero Journey. But that reminds me of a um, just a concept that I'll put out there called neutral thinking, right? So neutral thinking is not positive or negative thinking, but the ability to be able to kind of approach situations in kind of that open, unbiased mindset, no judgment, right? So if something great happens, it's like okay, so that's like Jay's old parable with the boy and the horse, right? So they bought a horse. The horse ran off into the town, and everyone from the town was like, "Oh no, your horse has run off." And then the man says, "Okay, good thing, bad thing, who knows?" And then three horses returned, right? So then the the people from the town are like, "Oh, fantastic! The horses. Now you have three horses. That's fantastic." And it goes on to with the son who what I mean, who falls off, breaks his foot, like good thing, bad thing, and then the army comes in the end, right? So to that parable, I think we don't truly know, right, if something is a good or a bad thing, and if we can maintain that neutral mindset of one thing that mindfulness meditation definitely pushes is judgment free thinking, right? Where if thoughts come into your head, don't judge yourself, don't judge them, just allow them to kind of almost go through you, through your mind, and that is a massive skill in itself. But no, fantastic, guys. Thanks for those actionable little parts. So, all our listeners, today we dove into mindfulness and performance. Hopefully, we gave you a different point of view from your average mindfulness meditation kind of informational. Hopefully, we gave you some real actionable thoughts and tools that you can use in your everyday life. Hopefully, you enjoyed our chat. As we said many times before, if this added value, please share with a friend and remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Thank you so much, Alexis, Almar, Avril. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thanks.
every
Thank you.
time.
So thanks, Eric.
Yeah. Once again, I want to say congratulations, Alexis.
Aw. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Life's a Coach, where our conversations aim to empower and support your personal growth. Until next time, remember that personal development is ongoing, so keep exploring, keep learning, and keep living a life that aligns with your true purpose. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of Life's a Coach.